Hello, hello. It's Tuesday at noon. I'm here again. I'm so thrilled to be chatting with the Daily Lindsey today. I don't know. I just met her a month ago, and she's somebody who I immediately connected with. And I know social media gets a lot of poo poo, but I just want to say that Lindsey is one of those people that makes me feel like, oh, she's already here. That it's the reason that social media is such an amazing thing. Um, Here we go. It's gonna work. It's gonna work. Lindsey, do you see? Okay, there we go. Yes. Hello.
Hello.
It's so nice to see you.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. It's nice to see you, be out in the social media world,
Right? This
chatting,
is like the world now. It's so funny.
breaking out of my pandemic cocoon.
Yeah, right before I jumped on, I got a text from one of my close friends who said that for people with seasonal depression disorder, a day in the 50s in March feels like taking a Molly. And I was like, yeah, I feel so good today. But
Yeah.
you're up in Canada. How is it? Are you still like full blown winter?
Oh, yeah. But fortunately, the sun is coming out more and it's shining more this week. So it looks sunny, even though it's like 30, 20 degrees outside. So
Yeah, I felt like particularly over it last week. Like it was just too cold and too gray, and I don't know. It's the sunshine is doing wonders for me, so I'm glad to hear it's up
same,
too.
same. Yeah, I'm looking forward to like 3 weeks from now when like spring vibes will really be in effect and you'll know that it's coming. So things to look forward to.
Yeah, totally. Even the smallest things right now, it's been just a ridiculous year.
Yeah. It's interesting how when I was going through treatment, like it was the littlest things that like brought joy to my day and helped power me through that. And now going through this pandemic, I'm like, oh, I can apply that to this time of life. And just like a nice warm cup of coffee and fresh berries, like makes me happy.
Totally. I think I've heard a lot of people say that actually, that having an illness really prepped you for what it's like to feel vulnerable and out of control, and how to figure out ways to feel good in spite of just kind of total cultural chaos.
For sure. And like you really learn how to like take care of yourself and how important it is to take care of yourself before you take care of others, because then you're just spread too thin. And prioritizing that wellness aspect of our health has been so important for me to get through this pandemic with a smile on my face, to be
Yeah,
honest.
totally. So before we like fully dive in, do you want to
Okay.
do a little intro? I was so excited to meet you. Amanda from Young Survivals Coalition connected us over email, and I was like, how do I not know this woman? She's totally amazing. And you do, and like we have so many
I felt the same way.
kind of
I was
like
like, how are our paths not crossed yet? Because you were
yeah.
involved with the Breasties too, right? Going to their camp.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
do you want to do like a mini intro?
From me?
Yeah, totally. I would, yeah, just like introduce yourself, and it
Okay,
doesn't have to be like, I know we do introductions here
sure.
just generally about like our cancer stats or our
Okay,
pre-vivor stats or whatever, but you can talk about like who you are now and moving and your
sure. I
photos,
mean,
like
okay,
however
all
you want
right.
to talk about yourself.
Well, hello everyone out there. I'm Lindsey and I'm on Instagram at the Daily Lindsey if you want to connect there. I am a two-time breast cancer, I like to say slayer, not survivor, just because
Hmm.
I don't know, just that kind of attitude makes me feel good about this experience and moving through it. But my most recent, I was first diagnosed in 2015, got diagnosed in the same breast that had a mastectomy in 2017. I'm in the 5% of cases that happens to. And I went through chemotherapy, a lumpectomy, 33 doses of radiation, and then like this whole like life after cancer and recovering from like the emotional and physical aspect of that aggressive treatment was a lot. And then in 2019, my husband and I made the crazy decision to move to Ottawa, Canada, which is on the eastern side of the Canadian, if you're looking at the map. And he was recruited by an animation studio to work here. And we thought, why not? Like, we don't have kids. Sounded like an adventure to us, a change of scenery. And we went ahead and did it. We came out in August to like check out the place. And then by like October 31st, we were in the airport with our cat moving here, like
Wow.
for 2 years.
And
So I've had to transition my care from the States to here, which in itself has been kind of crazy. You know, you think about like National Healthcare Canada, oh, things must be so rosy over there. But yeah, it's nice to know that like it's available to everyone. But at the same time, if you're new into the system, trying to get settled has been quite a process. And like just over a year later, I'm finally like getting like my oncologist, getting my annual scans done. And so finally settling in. And so that brings me to now. And I like share my story on Instagram about what it's like to be in preventive maintenance mode, living life abroad, and just connecting with women who have been affected by breast cancer and finding inspiration there every day to just keep going.
awesome. Well, thank you. First, thank you for sharing. And second,
Sure.
you know, I can't imagine how difficult it would be to move to a brand new place and then have a pandemic hit, and how difficult it would be to make connections and find people. I know everybody struggled with that on some level, but Southern California to Ottawa is really far.
Yeah, I mean, for some reason, I was very, what is it, optimistic about transitioning like my support system from, you know, LA, where I was involved with the breasties, and I started this little group with a bunch of other girls in the community called the Grateful Hearts. Like I made a lot of friends in the breast cancer community, and we had come to like hang out a lot and just like support each other. And I thought, oh, you know, we can do that digitally. It won't be a big deal. Well, turns out like being 3 hours ahead really is a big change. And so I've had to, you know, adjust how I communicate with people, my friends, my family, and start, I guess, start from scratch, start like brand new, like meeting new women in the community and getting settled. And luckily, there's a group here called OMG, Ottawa Monthly Gatherings, and they're a group of young women affected by breast cancer, and they get together about once a month virtually right now. And
Yeah.
they've been a great resource for me to help get settled, and when I can ask them about doctors and things about going to the hospital, and that has really like helped with the anxiety of like navigating that front.
Yeah, I was going to say figuring out a new health system, you know, not to say ours is perfect in the States. There's always so much room for improvement.
Yeah.
But like figuring it out and having somebody who's been through it and understands it and who's had a similar experience to you to say, okay, this is how you can get in with this person or that person. Like, I can't imagine what a massive amount of time you've probably spent over the last, you know, how long you've been there, 2 years, right? Almost.
It'll be at end of October 31st will be 2 years.
Okay.
So a year and a half about.
Year and a half. Yeah. Well, amazing. Well done. Good job figuring it out. I think it's overwhelming to just think about even.
Yeah. Well, like what was interesting about like in the process of trying to figure it out, I thought that I could just go to the breast cancer center here because it's called the breast cancer center.
Yeah.
And can kind of just get it sorted out pretty seamlessly. But it turns out there's like a breast cancer center, there's a cancer clinic, there's a cancer center. They have different names and they all have different roles. And it took me a while a lot of calls and getting transferred to finally like get to the right place. And even when I saw my doctors, like the first time I met them, they're like, what are you here for? Like, are you here for active treatment or
right
maintenance? You know, I had to explain to them, no, just maintenance. And it was a process to navigate that. But comparing like how I moved through it in the States and here in Canada has been really interesting, because I think the good thing about the American system is that you can see a specialist whenever you need to. Like you don't have to, especially as like when I was first diagnosed as a young patient, like they moved me to the top of the list. I was able to see a doctor like the next day and get my biopsy. Like here, I know women in my support group or community group who have waited like months to get a biopsy, about a month or two before they could even get a biopsy.
Yeah.
So that's the downside of, I think, national healthcare, is that the system can't move as fast as it needs to meet the needs of like cancer healthcare.
Yeah, I'm ever hopeful that healthcare all over the world will continue to get better, and that there will be new ways, and that it won't just be for the people who like fall neatly in the bell curve. Like if you get an illness, if something happens, that you can have like the speed and immediacy and sort of access, but also not have it bankrupt you and your family.
I know.
Like,
well, that's the thing.
It's such a huge, complicated issue.
Yeah.
And I really, I hope that it changes at a pretty rapid clip, but I'm a pathological optimist. So
Same.
Yeah.
I err on that side. I think as young women who keep like, unfortunately, like there's going to be more of us who are getting into like, who need more health care. And I think if we continue to like speak up and share our stories and like talk openly about our experiences in the healthcare system, hopefully that kind of helps wedge the door open for more change and to keep like the spectrum we're going.
I think there were lots of women who suffered silently and stoically for too long, and it was impossible to figure out what needed to get done because we weren't really allowed to talk about it. And the more people share their stories, whether it's online or in all the different ways that you can, the better off we're going to be. So
yeah,
I have really loved looking at your Instagram feed. I'm someone who kind of likes having a daily artistic practice just in general. I know we've talked about like being list makers, and selfies are such a hilarious contemporary trope, but the way that you used it is such like a beautiful art piece. Do you want to talk a little bit about
Sure. So throughout treatment, I was using Instagram as a channel for, I don't know, like my creative inclinations, I guess. And one example is during radiation, I wore a different shade of my lipstick collection for each day I went to my dose. And I documented it, took a selfie every day. And by the end of it, I had this crazy collage of like 33 lipsticks from like blue to purple to like hot pink. And it was fun. And just having that daily practice of, okay, I'm going to do this, help the time, I wouldn't say move faster, but was a good way to mark the time of what I was going through, and gave me, I mean, it's not like a huge focus, but it was another factor in all the other stuff that was going on at the time. So yeah, there's definitely something to having a regular daily creative practice.
Yeah, and I think, there's your body and how you look changes so much, and there's little things, and there are things out there that I think sometimes are really silly, but like deciding, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to wear a different lipstick. It's like a way to control how you look. It's a way to punctuate the time. It's a way to see how you look and grow and change, and to look back on it and say, oh, I remember that day doing that, and having it not all be a blur, right? Like,
yeah,
I think there's really something to taking ownership over it, whether it's, I know people who've worn different outfits, or it's about shoes or head wraps, like there's different people who do it in different ways. And I think that you documented it and shared it is so powerful.
Thank you. I mean, that's one of the things that helped me get through that really hard time, was just writing down and having an outlet to share that experience. I would wish on no one, but I think it also helps raise awareness, like among like cancer muggles, as I like to say, and even within the cancer community, because there are little practices every day. Even now, like I still consider myself like post recovery. Like there's still issues from treatment that I'm still working through right now, and having like a daily post or a daily story.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I also love that you call yourself a slayer. I think one of the things really early on when I was starting Brilliantly, that sort of struck me was how many women struggled with what to call themselves, whatever their experience was, right? Like, I hate the word previvor. I just don't, I don't identify with it at all. I use it all the time because I want to be clear when I'm in a group or when I'm in a setting for women to like, we're all here for a reason, right? We've had a bad experience with cancer, but like identifying what it is, because I think that's really important. That we have a shared connection, but we're clear about it. Sure. But I think I'm so hungry for new words and language. Mm-hmm. And I connected with a woman at Camp Breasty, and we reconnected recently. I live in Rhode Island. She also lives in Rhode Island, and she's a professor and is great about collecting data. And so we had a call, and we've been emailing back and forth, and we're creating a survey to start help with this like word storm, brainstorm, I'm calling it, because I think there's room for other words. So I'm glad you said that.
For sure. Like, and it's something that I've struggled to define over the years. Like, am I comfortable saying survivor? I've said that for a few years. I've said thriver. Now I'm at slayer because I've decided that, like, this is so cheesy. Cancer doesn't get to write my story. I get to reclaim it. Like, and when I think about like cancer writing my story, oh, Lindsey went through lumpectomy. Lindsey went through radiation. Lindsey went through chemo. Yes, those are like the basic facts, but like how you color within those, I guess, bubbles of life, like really like is the way that I can write my own story. So instead of saying cancer patient, cancer survivor, you know what? I slayed it. Like, I didn't feel like I was slaying at the time, but looking back, like I did the best that I could with what I had. And, I can't regret anything because it was all I did the best I could. And
yeah, I think your point is so valid too, about how you feel when you're in it and how you feel later, and that's going to change. And it might feel really different the day you ring a bell versus 10 years from now. And that there should be other words and there should be other ways that you can talk about who you are and what it meant to you, because you're right. It's like a single thing. It's one part of the complex person who you are.
It's okay, so in my journal I've kind of explored this idea, like the language of healing and how it evolves at every point in your experience as a patient, and how it can change. Like your perspective of what you went through should be allowed to change, and you shouldn't have to feel like you're boxed into this like category, like, oh, cancer took this away from me and so I'm closed off to these other areas of life. I've decided, like, no, like, yes, I'm closed off to maybe carrying a child on my own, but there are new possibilities, and I'm not going to let that, well, there are days where I do let that get me down, because that's part of like healthy, I think, emotional release from all the like complex emotions we get from treatment and the social aspects that happen where we are affected physically by these changes.
Yeah, of course. It's not to say that like somehow owning it means you have to feel really positive about it all the time. Like,
and that's the other thing too, like I'm very aware of in my Instagram is like, yeah, like I naturally lean toward the positive or optimistic side, but at the same time, like I also try to be aware of like when I'm down, like this is a reality too about the experience. And like with my first recovery, I was very conscious about speaking about it, like with my family and my friends, and I didn't really know how to talk about it without making people feel awkward. And with the second time around, like I've learned to just not think so much about what the other person is saying and really just like stay true to what my experience is.
Yeah, I think it's so important. I had my mastectomy in 2013, and I have a huge family, and I started a blog because I was like, I can't call everybody. Like, I don't know how to tell everybody what's happening. And it really skews positive. And it was because my mom had died, I was getting separated. All of these things in my life were happening simultaneously. And I was like, oh, I can't bum everybody out. The last thing I want is a pity party. And I think that in hindsight, it helped me frame it for myself in a positive way. And that there are only like such a small handful of people in my non breast cancer community life who know how shitty I feel about certain parts of it at certain times. And I think it's really critical that people continue sharing the dark stuff, the hard stuff, the confusing stuff. You know, the week of Valentine's Day, I heard from like probably 5 women, some of whom aren't even on Instagram, and like found me through articles and whatever, asking about dating and being so lonely and scared to have to, like, it's one thing to feel shitty in your body alone when you look in the mirror and you're like, fuck. But it's a totally different thing when there's somebody who wants to touch that body and enjoy that body. And how do you talk about it? And these really heartfelt messages. And I was like, yeah, we need to talk more about this.
That's very hard. Yeah, who can you talk to? Like, no one in your family or friends, though they care, will never understand. And that's why I think it's so important to surround yourself in this community of women who are willing to tell their stories and are becoming more and more open to sharing these things, because it's hard stuff. It's hard enough to admit it to yourself. Like for me, it was really hard for me to admit like some of these aspects, like sexual health, for example. And I'm still like working on that. And it's really important to have a safe space of women who get it. And like, I actually think being more open to sharing my story and making friends with wonderful women involved on Instagram, like it's amazing how like they've helped me through some really dark times, and it has made all the difference with my second recovery from treatment.
Yeah, it's so unlikely too. Like you never think I'm gonna find the woman who understands my experience this way. You know, like some of the people who I call when something scary happens, I never would have imagined meeting. Like it's because of these communities and tools that have popped up that, you know, the people who know me almost the best even exist in my life. And it's hard to have something be such a dark, awful thing and also a gift, and to reconcile that all the time emotionally.
Yeah, that, and then also like that my loved ones and closest friends, like it took a long time to like accept that I don't need them to understand like every aspect of my cancer experience. Like it's enough for me to know what I've been through, and that there are women in my community who know what I've been through, and I'm okay with being misunderstood sometimes.
Yeah, totally. Like, and it's well-intentioned people misunderstand and say stupid things all the time. You call them cancer muggles, and I think that's so spot on.
Yeah. But I mean, I know I'm smiling through it all, and like it's hard stuff.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think that there women who skew smiley get ignored a lot when there is something difficult, or when you're not smiley, then people don't know how to respond to you.
Exactly, because you're sharing just like, it's easy to share just like the milestone, happy, celebratory moments, and it's not so easy to start up like a hard conversation or something that feels very personal and close to you.
Yeah,
like carrying a child, or you know, relationships with your partner, aspects like that.
Yeah, well, I appreciate your time so much, and I'm really just so happy to know you, and I love watching your feed, and I'm excited to stay connected, I guess.
Yes, for sure. I am so excited. You know, I saw last night you posted the upcoming workshop for like, I think like healthy eating with those nutritionists, and I'm really looking forward to that. That's going to be something pretty cool. Awesome.
I'm going to call myself a nutritionist muggle if we're going to go into muggle category. You know, Allison, Lauren, and Simran are such forces for health and wellness, and I'm someone who's like, sure, I want to do some yoga and I like swimming, but it is not the wellness that I want to feel is like in here. And they have these like really good actionable ways that are research backed to do it, that I'm like, please teach me. And I also want it to be something that's super positive and doesn't feel restrictive. Like I want to share information that's like, here's what you add to your life to feel good and better, and not like, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. Because right now it feels so terribly shitty. And I personally, like if somebody says to me, don't do that, I'm like, I already can't do everything. What else do you not want me to do?
Yeah.
So I think for me, it's like, I'm super excited about that collaboration too, because they're so informed and it's difficult to find real evidence-backed information. So I'm glad you saw it, and I hope you'll join us.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Ongoing. We're going to do an event every other month and then a big thing in the fall. So it should be great. But thanks for that. Promote it here.
Of course. Well, you know, I saw it, so
yeah.
Looking forward to it. I'm so glad to have connected with you, and this community platform you've started is just amazing, and I can't wait to see it grow and what you do and stay involved and connected with you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And I'll link to you in the comments here and share your story again. I'm sure other women who are in that 5% will want to talk. It's a special little
it is a very special little bubble, and I remember meeting the first person who was in my same situation, and I just like was floored and felt like I met a cancer unicorn. And so
it's so important to find those people. So we'll connect with you there, and looking forward to staying in touch.
All right, take care.
Thanks for the time today.
Bye, Lindsey. Stay safe. Bye.
You too.